Hi, I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation, former divorce mediator. That was over 20 years ago before I learned how easy it is, I should say how simple it is to save marriages. Too many marriages fall apart and they shouldn't. Yours does not have to either. This topic. My husband says he will change, but never does, and I need 3 ideas to help our marriage. Now, I could give you lots more than 3, but I'm going to focus on these 3. Maybe you'll realize, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. You will look into getting one of the courses, the course for women, so you could transform your marriage into what it's supposed to be. But let's get into this topic. And then after we cover all these, we'll talk a little bit about marriage. And I'll talk to you also, if you're a follower, about how you can become a TMF marriage counselor. And let's see. My husband says he'll change, but he never does. Number 1, don't take this the wrong way, but be honest about what is possible. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about change. Everybody believes in change for the other person. Why? It's so difficult for an individual to change. Now, the environment is very strong. So if your husband, and this is not to put you down, this is merely describing, if your husband was living in an environment, your environment of total love, devotion, and I don't want to say worshiping him, but really loving him from your heart of hearts, and you treated him the way you promised you were going to treat him when you got married, before you got married, that environment will have a big impact on his behaviors. But what happens is, we get married, and when I was a divorce mediator, I saw this. The first thing that goes is respectfulness, consideration. We become over-familiar with each other, and we start treating each other in ways that we would never treat even a stranger. We complain, we criticize, we point out flaws like what you're doing now. Now, it could be that he has some really negative things going on. Maybe he's into porn. Maybe he's even having an affair and you want him to change. And guess what? Those things will go away when you change yourself. Don't take this as I'm blaming you for him being who he is. But when you understand why men stray, it might make a little more sense to you. You see, we get married in order to be happy. We don't get married because it's the thing to do. We want happiness. We want to experience love. Men especially, believe it or not, are much more sensitive than women. Now, women tend to be identified with their emotions more, and so they have a different kind of sensitivity, but men are more into their ego, and so they're more sensitive to things that typically occur in a marriage. Criticism, complaining. Men get very defensive. And what happens is the marriage starts to deteriorate. The man starts to feel claustrophobic. He feels, why did I do this? What's going on? But he doesn't want to end his marriage. So what he does is he looks for escapes. And the world is so messed up right now. And it condones things like, subtly, it condones things that are not condonable, like having an affair. Completely immoral. No one should do that. But men do it. Women, much fewer, but they like to advertise as if, oh, men and women are the same. They're not. Men look around. Maybe they get a prostitute. Maybe they just go online. It's so easy these days. And this is what happens. And so as a wife, you're going, he hates me. He's disrespectful towards me. He's humiliating me. You're taking it all personally, and you're not realizing what is going on for him, because we're not taught to do that. So this is where you're being taught to do that. And what is possible is for you to change yourself, but not to change him. But changing yourself will change his environment, and then he will adapt. And men are much simpler. And so it works. And we've been doing this for a long time. And our success rate is off the charts, where we use our course to teach women how to completely redo their marriage. And it's always at the edge or past the edge of the marriage being sustaining. It's about to go towards divorce. And who needs a divorce? We don't want to do that. So what you do is look at the course for women. See what we do. In the meantime, just consider how he is living and realize that for him to change with the pressures that he's feeling is not going to happen. It just won't. You can change yourself, which will change his environment. Then you're setting up the potential for him to change. That's what is possible. Not only is it possible, but we see it here happen all the time. Number 2, evaluate whether the changes you're looking for are worthy of your frustration. Now, if they are what I was talking about before, then they are worthy of your doing something about it. Don't be frustrated. You have free will, you have volition, you can do something about it. Now, a lot of people go, well, I don't want to spend the money and marriage counseling doesn't work. This isn't marriage counseling that we have. And so it does work. However, you still don't want to jump into spending the money. So just start by not complaining. Just go, I'm not going to complain anymore. Why? Because he didn't marry me to hear me complain. I'm not going to criticize him anymore. Why? Sometimes he needs it. No, he never needs it. You don't need it. No one needs it. These have become accepted in marriages, but it's all messed up. It undermines happiness. It undermines love. What he needs, what you need are the same. Happiness and love. Well, if you get a brand new car and you get in it and you start to drive it, but you never learned how to drive a car, you're in big trouble. And that's what both of you did with the marriage. You got to learn about marriage. You can't pretend that you can do it. It's all natural. It's not all natural. You have to learn the rules of the road. And you also have to learn how to master your own mind. Okay, so evaluate whether it is or isn't worthy of your frustration. If it's not, let it go. If it is, then you have to do something very positive and proactive to make the changes. Number 3, this is the big one. This is it. This is like when they ask, what is the number 1 law from God? Learn to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul is number 1. The number 1 law for marriage is learn to love each other with unconditional love. Learn to love unconditionally. It's not so easy. We think of loving unconditionally for our kids because there's this natural compulsion. That's not complete unconditional love. Complete unconditional love is when there isn't any compulsion. But you've chosen, you have free will, but you've chosen to love your husband unconditionally, and then you go about doing those things that reflect that intention. We say it easily. Oh, I love him. I don't know if I love him unconditionally anymore, but that's like a ground rule to learn to love unconditionally. In fact, marriage is a spiritual path. It's an individual spiritual path. Not a religious path necessarily, unless you want to make your marriage your religion, but it's a spiritual path because love is spiritual. Love isn't increased like, it's a whole different level of existence. You feel that when you go to weddings, when you look at your kids sleeping, and you go to a wedding, all of a sudden there's that feeling overwhelms you. It's not in the mind, it's here in the heart. It's you, the soul, expressing, and the mind gets in the way. So like in our courses, the number 1 thing we teach is how to master that mind, because the mind isn't you. And I know we're getting off a little, but this is important stuff. You have to learn how to master your mind in order to learn how to love unconditionally, because the mind gets in the way. It does. You know, modern Western psychology talks about honoring your emotions. They don't even know what emotions are. Emotions are actually merely software of the mind. They're not to be honored any more than pop-ups when you're in your computer or on your phone and they're telling you you have to buy this. You don't have to. You can totally ignore it. But you have to learn. First, we don't even know. We don't. It's like we live in a dumb world when it comes to what we are. So we don't realize we have to distinguish our minds as a possession, as a tool for us to utilize. It's not us. Us is the soul. The soul is love. The soul is joy. The soul is wisdom, consciousness. That's what you are. It's not the reactions. It's not the instincts. You're not your body. You're not your mind. You are you. So, you need to learn how to love unconditionally. You don't even know what that's all about. So, get into the website, get a familiarity, subscribe to the channel, watch these videos. This is important for you. You know, as a human being, we're supposed to be happy all the time. It's our birthright. Literally, it's our birthright to be walking around in joy, regardless of what the world is doing around us. Just doesn't matter. You are a soul. You're supposed to feel joy constantly. And marriage is supposed to take you to a whole nother level of that. And learning to love unconditionally is the prime directive in order for you to experience marriage for what it is. Now, I'm starting to train people to become TMF marriage counselors. The world needs us. They need this approach that works, that isn't just, so how does that make you feel? Or have you tried this? Have you tried that? We don't do that. We know exactly what we're doing with marriage at the Marriage Foundation. Just take a look at some of our testimonials. People are blown away. They have no idea. They have a little faith when they sign up. Within a week, there's a lot more faith because what we teach works. And there's no reason why we can't dominate the landscape with TMF trained marriage counselors who really are helping people so we could get rid of divorce. Now, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, I know that, but we've got to start somewhere, and now's the time to do it. So take a look at that if you're interested in becoming a counselor, and keep following us. Keep learning more. Like this video, leave a comment if you wish. Learning about marriage is essential to having a great marriage. And when you don't, you're basically not going to have even a decent marriage. It boils down to that distinction. Do I know what I'm doing, or do I not know what I'm doing? Now, great example are people who drive cars. You gotta learn how to drive a car before you get in one and start driving it, and even then, you're getting training all the way, and even after that, you're driving around and you're seeing when people do stupid things, and you know it's stupid because you've learned about driving. And you know when it's clever because you've learned about driving, but we don't have that with marriage. Our world is marriage dumb, very dumb. And where do we learn about marriage? Who teaches marriage? TV shows, the movies, magazine articles. You need the real deal, and that's what we're here for. I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation. I used to be a divorce mediator, and I believed in divorce. But when I started to get into it, I realized, whoa, as a society, as a world, we just don't know. We have to learn. And so I took it upon myself. No big deal. I'm not great. I just did the work. God bless you. Thank you for paying attention. Hope to see you again. Bye for now.